I do not see any public comment. So first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. Move approval.
I'll move that the February 19th minutes be approved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our first guest speaker today is Diane Randall.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Diane Randall, Director of Risk Management. I'm here this morning for an action item for the Insurance Legal Defense Services Agreement. And the action being requested is to approve an agreement for legal services with Eunice Salzman Jensen for 7 years in an amount not to exceed $3 million. On the background for this, back in 2009, we did a competitive RFP within the former firm Simmet Eunice Salzman, won that RFP. Then in November 2012, that firm separated and the insurance defense firm became known as Eunice Salzman. In April 2013, the board approved a contract with Eunice Salzman, and then in March of 2015, the agreement was extended for an additional 5 years until March 31st, 2020. This is not a service that we are required to procure based on Florida Statute 287.057E4. So we specifically do not have to procure this. The fiscal impact will be funded by operating funds, but as a result of this new agreement, the hourly rates have all been reduced. The partner liability hourly rate has been reduced by 13%, the associate liability rate by 20%, the liability paralegal rate by 13%, the workers' compensation partner rate by 37%, and the workers' compensation paralegal hourly rate by 42%. So I'm here today requesting approval for an agreement for legal services with Eunice Salzman Jensen for 7 years in an amount not to exceed $3 million.
Okay, questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Bennett?
Is this like a retainer fee?
No, this is a pay-as-they-go. It's a time expense. So they bill us monthly.
And they bill us monthly, and it will subtract from that $3 million.
Correct.
And what happens if we exceed that amount?
You'll see me again before we get there.
Hopefully we will not have one bus accident in the next 7 years, and we will not have any expenses in this legal contract. That will be great.
And just to give you an idea of, prior payments, the prior 7 years from 2013 through 2019, between liability and workers' comp, we've paid a total of $2,686,570. And the reason I bumped that a little bit is because there is some potential for some legislative changes that could affect the how many cases are actually litigated in the future.
Okay, Commissioner Schultz?
Diane, thank you. Can you discuss why the hourly rate changing and going down is a good thing? Can you discuss what caused those changes and where that falls?
Yes, our excess carrier actually has a litigation panel, and the rate that they pay is $185 an hour. We were paying in excess of that, and so when the renewal came up, I talked to the senior partner, and he agreed that they would do the associate rate at that. He did request that the partner rate be higher, which I was perfectly fine with that. They do an excellent job for us. I've been here for 10 years, and we go to trial two, maybe 3 times a year, and in that time, we've only had one verdict go against us. The rest have all been either defense verdicts or there may have been a verdict entered, but because we had a proposal for settlement out earlier, we didn't have to pay it over that amount, like for their attorney's fees and things. So they've done an excellent job. They're always very, in fact, when he saw a bus accident one day, he actually stopped on his personal time on a weekend to check to see if everything was okay, because it was a very high-profile accident that had occurred. So I think the relationship says a lot.
Okay, so the rates now are more in line with other contracted rates that
Yes.
they're charging.
Yes.
Do we have a sense as to who, I mean, do we have like a lead attorney? Is it the partner? What?
T.R. Eunice is the
Okay.
lead attorney. Whenever we, and the Jeff Jensen works with him. When we go to trial, those two are our first chair and second chair for all trials. They do have associates that do depositions and other discovery, that do things like the medical records reviews and things like that. The depositions that are more in-depth, like doctors and medical things, TR does handle those himself.
Now, if something were to happen to the attorney, we're not required to stay with the firm. If
No,
we decide to,
it
you know,
isn't-
you
it is
approve
a-
this, we can move.
Right, and I mean, then the contract clearly states that we can use other firms, we can, stop using them altogether, so we have that in the contract.
Excellent, thank you.
Commissioner Cox?
No,
I don't have any questions.
Okay,
I'll answer.
I think I'm the only person on the committee that was here when the firm switched around in 2012, I remember that. But what kind of, it happened to be an excellent firm, no question about that, but do we do any kind of search at all, any kind of evaluation the way we do with other entities that we procure services from?
And that speaks to the relationship we have with him and the success rate we have with him.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how much better he can find than the success rate we've had.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion? Do we need a motion?
We do.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the work you do on this.
Great job.
Okay. And now,
Consent?
yeah, I think consent on this. Yeah. Okay. Al, audit procurement.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns, I'm Director of Procurement. First, I want to thank all the committee members for your time that you spent reviewing the proposals and ranking the proposals and scoring the proposals. I'm really, really appreciative of you returning my calls and my emails and my texts and all of that. And I promise, hopefully after today, that won't happen anymore. I'd like to start this item off with a short PowerPoint. And the goal for today's action is the Finance Committee to decide if and which firms to bring in for the next Finance Committee meeting. The next action is to recommend the top 3 firms to the Board of Directors at the April 22nd board meeting. Just an update, just kind of going back in time a little bit again. The Finance Committee approved the evaluation criteria that Debbie put in front of, presented to you. From there, you all signed the conflict and confidentiality forms that were submitted, and we received six proposals. The subject matter experts, they did their review of the proposals, and they ranked them how they saw fit. Remember, we had members from T-BARDA, SCAT, Pinellas County, and a member of our staff. And Debbie Leas also was one of the subject matter experts that helped us do the review of those proposals. The subject matter experts, the ranking and their comments, I sent those to you in one of the packets along with the big binders and just kind of a reminder. And in that, it did a summary of how they came up to their scores with their abbreviated comments in the packet as well. The Finance Committee, the Finance Committee, you all have ranked and submitted your preliminary rankings, and today we're here to review those rankings and scores. First, the proposal scores, and the ranking is based off of all of the points that were added up cumulatively from all of you. And as you can see, Cherry Beckert, and I'm sorry for the abbreviation. Cherry Beckert came in number 1 with 3,757 points. Clifton Larson Allen, the incumbent, came in second with 3,733 points.
Sorry about that, guys.
And Plant Moran came in third with 3,597 points. The next slide shows you the ranking on how, and what I did from left to right, the far left column is the evaluators, which are the members of the committee. The last row is the subject matter experts. And then it shows you how each committee member ranked the proposals, from Clifton Larson Allen, MSL, CRI, Thomas Hill, Plant Moran, and Cherry Beckert. At the bottom, I show you the average. And the average shows the ranking for the top from 1 through 6. Clifton Larson Allen was ranked highest, Cherry Beckert second, and Plant Moran third. The next steps. Vote on in-person presentations, and staff recommends that you bring the top 3 firms in so they can present. The format, if you do choose to choose that format, we could talk about the format and how that, and the logistics of that afterwards. Recommend the top 3 ranked firms to the full board of directors. That is a requirement by the Florida statute. If you receive more than 3 proposals, you have to bring forward the top 3 ranked proposals in that order, rank 1, 2, 3, based on your decision. But as a friendly reminder, it is the full board's decision on which auditing firm we choose. Board of once again, board of directors selects the firm. State law requires, and after this goes before the board, then staff would enter into negotiations. What I envision is bringing a not to exceed amount to the board, but some of the firms have taken some minor exceptions. Nothing that would change the price or the scope of work. So I feel comfortable entering into those negotiations. Once again, today's action is the Finance Committee to decide if and which firms to bring to the interview on April 15th. Just what it was staff's recommendation is that you bring the top 3 ranked firms, Clifton Larson Allen, Cherry Beckert, and Plant Moran, forward where they would do in-person interviews. Then from there, you re-rank, stay with that ranking, re-rank, but the decision that would be made is to bring the top 3 ranked firms to the full board of directors. Once again, I wanted to sincerely thank you for all your time that you spent. You kind of get an idea of a flavor of what staff goes through on a monthly basis, and they have to put up with me emailing and calling and texting and all that stuff. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay. First of all, Al, thank you very much. This is a really big project, and you did a good job of putting everything together, and you put everything in a binder for us and so on, and I want to thank you and the staff for all the work you've done on this.
Thank you, sir.
This is probably one of the most confusing things that we do in our position on the Finance Committee, and I'll open it up for questions, but then the one thing that I want to make sure we all understand how those rankings were attained. None of the existing firm is not in the top 3.
They are.
They are? Okay.
Number 2, right?
Clifton Larson Allen is
CL.
2.0, they're the incumbent.
They're the incumbent. Okay, but are we going with the highest score, not the lowest score?
It's
The lowest.
The lowest.
Lowest.
Lowest score.
Lowest.
Okay, I got it backwards. Okay,
Closest to
fine,
number 1.
that's fine. Okay, that's fine then, okay. So if we could just, I'll take questions, but then I'd like a quick review on how, what were the key factors that helped us determine this particular ranking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Bennett, you had a question?
Well, I wanted to look at this chart again, which he's showing us,
Okay.
and that ranking is the way, 2 or 3 charts prior to this is the way you ranked them, right?
This one.
CB is number 1, and that's the way we ranked them.
So there were some ranked Clifton Larson Allen number 1, some ranked Sherry Becker number 2, and vice versa.
But I mean the points on the other chart.
He's got to explain these.
So I'll start with the subject matter experts. They ranked Clifton Larson Allen number 1, Sherry Becker number 2, P. Plant Moran number 3, and so on and so forth, 1 through 6. So each one of those different colors represents an evaluation committee member's ranking.
So now go back to the chart where you ranked.
So this is
So-
just the, this is just the committee. All
Correct.
of you.
So you remember, sir, you filled out a form and you gave, I think, up to 1,000 points?
Yes, sir.
1,000 points. So what Al has done here, you, Mr. Bennett, are one of those numbers. I'm not sure. Or no. Your numbers, up to 1,000 points for each firm, are added to Mr. Cox, Mr. Barkley. All of your added up, and then the sum total, if you're just adding all the points, Cherry, what are they called, Cherry Becker? Came in first place by a sliver over Clifton Larson Allen, the incumbent. And then, Al, if you go to the next chart, this is the just ranking, like the ordinal ranking that each finance committee member and the subject matter experts rank them in order.
Well, the top 3 is still the top 3.
Correct.
Top 3 is still the top 3.
I just don't understand why CLA wasn't number 1 when they're number 1 here.
Well, somebody must have ranked Cherry Becker,
Jerry Becker.
like, must have given them,
Well, that's the way.
Somebody
we
must have
ranked
rated, someone's
CLA
not very
1
low.
and Cherry Becker 2, right?
right.
But
But
if
then
you
you
look,
look at the other
if-
chart, they're turned around the other way.
If you look at evaluator committee member number 2 and number 3, rank Cherry Becker number 1. And they have points commensurate to that. And when you add all the scores up, Cherry Becker came in, like Brad said, as a couple of points.
So they're ranked based on the scores, not on the way we ranked them,
Correct, yes, sir.
even though it's close.
Even though it's close. And at the end of the day, the top 3 firms.
Are still the top 3
Are the
firms.
top 3 firms.
Sure.
Mr. Schulman?
So, thank you. I don't want to out any of the evaluators here, but I did want to note, and I mentioned this to Brad yesterday, that our evaluator sheet, the order of the different firms was not in the same order as they appeared on the source material. So, I know when I scored originally, I was putting them in the wrong column and noticed that I was on the wrong. So
I
I would,
apologize.
my thought would be, I think evaluator 1 may actually have succumbed to having them thinking they were lined up and they weren't. I don't, even if you change them completely around, it doesn't change the scores.
Yes, sir.
But, and Commissioner Bennett, I think the easy way to explain the difference is this is the popular vote, and the other one's electoral college.
There you go.
Right, so you can get 51% of the vote and get all of and get the total ranking of position, or you can get 99% of the vote and still just get the total ranking. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there.
Thank you for telling me that, because I hadn't even observed that. I really appreciate that.
I think it might explain
This
why.
is our statistician over here.
Oh, not really,
Yeah,
but
Commissioner Cox.
that's him.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead. You have
No,
a question.
because the numbers could flex there because it depends on where you rank. Let's say in qualification, it's 200 points, but if you rank highly on the audit approach, then there's 375. You know, potential
Yes, sir.
point savings, so on.
Did you?
No, I borrowed it from him.
Oh, okay.
I left mine at home.
All right, Commissioner Soraki?
Thank you. Al, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the top three, we vote on them today. They're going to come and do a presentation to us.
That would be my recommendation to you, sir. Yes, sir.
So we'll hear all three candidates, and then we get to vote again.
Yes, sir. Well, I would say rank them
Rank 'em.
afterwards. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
yeah, okay, that's all.
The whole board will do it afterwards, or just us?
Just committee.
Yeah, but that would be.
Yeah, I think that would be
brutal to try
helpful.
and get 15 people to agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just describe briefly, like, how you envision the interviews going next month.
So if you do choose to do interviews, the way it would work is the firm would come in, we would have a list of questions that the subject matter expert, and of course you, if there's some specific questions that you want answered by all three firms, we would have them do a script, and they would come in, present, do an abbreviated presentation of their proposal. They would bring their A team, not their B team, not their sales team. The same people that would be handling the audit, they would be required to be in person. That would take maybe about 8 minutes, give you 2 or 3 minutes for Q&A. After that, the next firm would come in. We don't discuss or anything like that because sunshine rules with procurement. The second firm would come in, repeat the process. And then after that, the third firm would come in and repeat the process. After that, that's when we would rank it. It would be known as an evaluation committee meeting. Same like this, it would be a public notice. You would rank them, then based off of that recommendation, that's what we would take to the board of directors.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I
Okay,
have.
Commissioner, yeah,
This guy.
that's good, yeah.
You said we're gonna submit questions to each of the firms in advance. Can we also get a list of those questions?
Yes, sir.
As well
Yes, sir.
as-
Everything that the subject matter experts and Debbie put together before we send it out, I'll send it to you all for your review and comment.
And when this is all done, are we gonna have an opportunity to circle back on this process since it's new and you know, talk about how we might be able to make it better or different or?
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
I would really appreciate
I
that.
don't want to,
Okay.
it's not appropriate to do that now, but certainly when it's done.
I would appreciate that.
And I think too, that'll
That's a good
be,
question, Commissioner Schulman, thank you.
I think that'll be helpful. Myself and Julie Lucas will be sitting on this for the MPO. You know, other areas, other municipalities, et cetera, are starting to reach out to us now to say, can you help with this process? So any best practices we can bring, having been the first one in the whole area to
The
do
first.
this,
Right.
you know, would be helpful.
Commissioner Bennett, you have another question?
Just one more question now. I appreciate the fact that you sent that paper to us telling how the committee voted or looked at it. I would rather you told me why rather than what the results were. I don't know whether you giving us the results influenced our decision or not, because I certainly looked at it and compared it with what I had done.
Yes, sir.
But I would rather you told us, you gave CLA 193.75 points. I'd rather you told me, how did you do that? How did, not necessarily CLA, but how did you take the qualifications and determine how you got the points? Just give us a little how.
Okay. And I appreciate that. And with that being said, I like to do what Chair Barkley asked me to do, give a little summary. And basically, what I sent in your packets, I sent you an abbreviated version of how the subject matter experts came up to their scores. And I'm just gonna read a couple highlights for the top three firms, if that's okay. In section A1, one of the subject matter experts wrote, Clifton Larson Allen has experience with government entities and relevant experience desired for this project with transit authorities such as HART and T-BARTA, as well as prior audit experience with PSTA. Engagement team meets CPE requirements and relevant memberships, including AICPA, FICPA, GAQC, GFOA, and FGOA. Another evaluation member, another advisor wrote, the offer meets the requirements, meets criteria, All qualifications met and assigned personnel appear to be highly capable. When it comes to quality control, it says that Clifton Larson Allen has an external QC system review report provided to the agency. One meets the requirement, 2019 score pass, and another comment, score pass. For the last section, Clifton Larson Allen has been subject to several federal and state desk reviews in the past 3 years. However, there are disciplinary actions and findings reported as resolved in the proposal. It says that another comment was offer meets the requirement, meets criteria, fully responsive. In regard of Cherry Becker, engagement team exceeds CPE requirements with extensive list of CPE courses. Cherry Becker has experience with auditing government entities and public transportation authorities relevant to this project, including HART, Lynx, MWAA, Hampton Roads Transit, RMTA, and their memberships are aligned with Clifton Larson Allen's memberships. CPE hours was not clear and concise. The offer states 40 hours of relevant continuing education during each year of the last 3 years as required by government auditing standards. 24 hours is required in the last 2 years. There was discussion on that particular item from the subject matter experts, and after review, the advisor who wrote that comment, they saw where it was outlined in the proposal where others didn't. That's where the group discussion comes in, that you guys aren't having, that you're not having today, but at staff level, that's the kind of engagement we had. Cherry Becker, as far as they met all the other quality controls, just like Clifton Larson. A3, numerous desk reviews and have yielded no adverse actions in the past 3 years. No disciplinary actions taken or pending against the firm in the last 3 years in any federal or state agency, and they met all the criteria. The third firm, Plant Moran, who came in third, and I would like to say, in procurement language, there's a range called the competitive range. And when you look at the scores cumulatively, I would say Cherry Beckert and Clifton Larson Allen are what we would consider the competitive range. But Plant Moran, they're outside of the competitive range, and I would ask you to take that in consideration when you're making your decision. Plant Moran engagement team includes members of the firm's government transportation practice. The team not only meets CPA requirement, but teaches CPA courses. Plant and Moran are ranked second largest single audit provider in the U.S. and have experience with NTD reporting, memberships including APTA, as well as all the alphabets. Listing of CPE for the past 2 years was not listed for each staff. No Florida association is listed for any staff. Not that that is a requirement, but it seems odd. Still a high score according to Bonfire. All qualifications met. From a quality control perspective, system review report provided includes specific government engagements. The offer meets the requirement. The peer review ended in June 30th, 2016. Sorry. And lastly, none of the desk reviews or 6 field reviews of government engagements in the past 3 years have resulted in any findings or substandard or deficient auditing. No disciplinary actions taken pending against firm in the past 3 years from federal or state regulatory bodies. And those comments, they've also, the advisors provided comments for the 4, 5, and 6. I can continue if you like. Clifton Larson Allen has over 5 years' experience with government entities and public transportation authorities relevant to the scope of this project. The offer meets the requirements, meets criteria, demonstrated numerous instances of relevant experience. From partner supervisory and staff experience, significant engagements including government agencies, with public transit authorities to include PSTA, HART, T-BARTA. The engagement partner was not identified in the most significant engagements, and after further review, the partner was identified, who would be in charge of this engagement. Meets criteria, Hillsborough, HART, T-BARTA, PSTA, they're the current auditor, as you said.
Is this, what number is this, in this chart up here?
This is Clifton Larson Allen, number
Okay,
2.
fine. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Proposer must have experience in conducting reviews in accordance with Florida single audit requirements. CLA has been ranked as performing the largest number of single audits in the United States. The engagement partner was not identified in the most significant engagements, and we answered that. The largest number in U.S. per their notes, 1,086 single audits. Cherry Beckert, as it pertains to this section, has over 5 years' experience with government entities and public transportation, HART and links specifically. The offer meets the requirements, met the criteria, mentions transit and NTD reporting, demonstrated numerous instances of relevant experience. The staff assigned, significant engagements with government entities and public transit authorities, including single and NTD reporting. The offer met the requirement, and then it gives examples for Cherry Beckert, HART, Miami-Dade Aviation Department, City of St. Petersburg, City of Clearwater, City of Pinellas Park. Also, experience in conducting reviews. Cherry Beckert has performed over 100 single audits with government and non-for-profit organizations in accordance with FSA requirements. And then it says that they meet the requirements. At Plant Moran, from partners, supervisory, and staff experience. The firm's government transportation audit team has extensive experience with state government entities, agencies, clients, as well as transportation authorities similar to PSTA, such as HART. They meet the requirements, demonstrated numerous instances of relevant experience. When it comes to the staff assigned to the project, significant engagements that are similar to this proposal, including SMART, CATA, and DDOT, which are transit agencies. Staff assigned to the project did not include the list of most significant engagements, with the exception of one staff. Audit senior has 4 years of governmental experience. They meet the criteria. Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, or SMART, CATA, Detroit, Sarasota, Manatee Airport Authority, Rhode Island Airport Corporation. As it pertains to single audit, staff is experienced with reviews in accordance with FSA requirements. Firm is ranked second largest single audit provider in U.S. The offer meets the requirements, second largest in the nation. 575 single audits with $9 billion in federal funds. And
Commissioner Bennett, you got a question?
Well, I think that Al has done a great job of giving us all this information, and I think we're probably at a point now where we ought to determine which firms are going to come back.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I just wanted to ask, oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make just a comment about the interview process. So, as this chart shows, the top 3 firms are very close in points. Based on some previous interview experience, especially with T-BARTA, where the finance committee there did some interviews, I think once you do the interviews and you see them, you'll have a clear sense of who's number 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I remember that from before.
Yeah. Maybe PM, what's her name? Plant Moran. Plant Moran might be just like knock your socks off, and they could be number 1. It's not totally fair necessarily, because they're going into the final, the interview's a little bit behind, but it's perfectly okay. If you just start everyone at 0, now, once you pick the top 3 to go to the interviews, they all start at 0 and made the best CPAs win.
Okay, very good. I just have two quick questions. First one for Debbie.
Yes, sir.
Can any of these three firms do as well of continuing our track record on CAPR awards? That's one of the first things that I
I'm
think.
sure all
we could.
three could. Actually, I was very pleased with all six firms that, provided proposals to us.
Okay, and you feel comfortable working with any of those firms?
I do.
Okay. The other question is, where is the location, Al, of the local servicing office that would be working with us on a regular basis?
For the top three, sir?
Yeah, because you mentioned one of them didn't have a local, they were a national firm, but did not have a local structure.
Clifton Larson Allen, I know for a fact is local.
Uh-huh.
Their office is, I'm looking here.
Tampa?
Yeah, it's located in Tampa.
Okay.
It's 201 North Franklin Street,
Yeah,
Suite
Sounds
2500.
good enough. I just want to
And-
make sure that we've got to have local access and service if we need it. That's really that's the
So-
question.
So what I would like to do,
Yeah.
if it's okay with the board chair, is I would like to have that as one of the questions
Mhm.
that they have to address when they do their presentations, if you do move forward with
The
presentation.
fact that one of them was Rhode Island Transit Authority or Rhode Island Airport or something, that's not relevant for us, except for the fact that they know what they're doing.
Yes, sir.
But I want to make sure that if we have a question or if we have a concern, that we're going to have somebody local that we can contact and work closely with to get that problem resolved. I want to keep our track record going on CAPR reports and other kinds of important reports like that.
Understood.
Okay.
And once again, what I'll have each firm do is speak to that specifically in their presentation, if we move forward with the presentation.
Okay, very good, thank you. Yeah,
If I
Commissioner
remember,
Cox?
if I remember correctly, both the top two do have a local entity.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Schulman? Go ahead.
Question about process, which I guarantee you already answered, but for whatever reason, it didn't click in my mind. So after the interviews, next time, do we have an opportunity to discuss as at a board level, or are we supposed to rank individually without discussion as part of this process?
You'll have an opportunity to discuss at committee level.
Right.
Yes, sir. At committee
Okay, so
level.
after all the interviews are done, we then can discuss and then create a ranking at that point.
Yes, sir. And I just want to make sure that you're aware, McLaurin to the Florida Sunshine, that all happens in the sunshine.
Okay, just, I wasn't sure if we were discussing it or just individually ranking like we did now.
No, discussion
Write it down
is
on a piece of
warranted.
paper and hand it in.
Yes,
sort of
sir.
thing. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, so what we're looking for then is to have a motion, I guess, to have the top three firms come in for, not in person, but in group presentations at our next Finance Committee meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So I'll make the motion that we ask Plant Moran, CLA, and Cherry Becker to come in for interviews at our next finance.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Al. Again, please stress to your staff and to you how much we appreciate this. This is really a difficult thing to do, and it's complicated. It's something we don't do that frequently, so therefore, it's sort of a relearning process when we do this.
And I appreciate all of your time, sir.
Good
Thank you.
job, Al, thank you.
I would also add, if we haven't sent a thank you letter to the subject matter experts, just acknowledging and thanking them for their time and effort. This was not, reviewing their reviews and the information was not easy, so going through all that as
Along with
not
day
their
job.
actual job.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure that we
Good
thank
point.
them as
That's a
well.
good point. Thank you very
I'll
much.
draft something and put Brad's signature block at the bottom.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I got to see it coming.
Okay,
Don't mention that.
That's all the substantive action items that we need right now. And let's move ahead with the monthly financial statement from Debbie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We're looking at the month of January, and in the month of January, we had still some wild numbers in here on property revenue. As you can see, our deficit is 1.6 million compared to the budget of 3 million, with a variance for the month of 4.6 million. Purely driven by property tax revenue. We'll see when we get to the year-to-date, it helps to even itself out. We also have on the expense side, you can see that we're under budget, $823,000. And we're under budget in almost every single area with the exception of utilities. Our electric bills were up slightly. And the other area that we were over budget in is in the TD expense. Our TD agency invoices are not quick to come to us, and when they did come to us, they were higher than what we had anticipated. So that is the one area where we are up over budget. Everything else is pretty well under. We were down about 5 people in the month of January. So that helps to drive both salaries and fringes to be significantly under budget. If we take a look at the year-to-date, our year-to-date surplus of 30.8 million is favorable to the budgeted surplus of 27.9, almost $28 million. When we take a look at this, our revenues are up $678,000. Again, it's being primarily driven by our property tax revenue from the timing of it, up a little over $500,000. But if you take a look at our expenses, we're $2.2 million under budget. If you recall, our annual budget this year is at about a $1.7 million deficit. If we were to stay on target to budget for the rest of the year, taking out the variable for the property tax, we'd be at about a $2.3 million surplus, which would cover that deficit. So hopefully we will continue on this path going forward to be able to close that gap. And so it's been good news. We'll be talking about budget assumptions in the next meeting. But there's a lot of, I hate to say, the shining silver lining to the whole coronavirus is the fact that our fuel prices are down significantly. And we are, as you know, we lock in about 2/3 of our fuel prices each year. I've tasked Al and his team to look at that for going into next year. Unlike some of our counterparts in the consortium, we have the ability to go out past this fiscal year. So if we do that and we lock in, and it's about an 8%, a little over 8% lock-in fee, we'd still be at the high end at about $1.58 per gallon. Our current budget in this year is $1.96. What we've locked in, which is about 1.5 million gallons this year, was at $1.88. So everything else is I do about 2/3 and float 1/3 to the marketplace. So we're seeing some significant savings there. If I can lock in next year at, let's say, the $1.58, I would save about $575,000 off of next year's budget.
That's great.
So I'm very excited to be pushing forward on that, and excited that we have the ability to do that unlike our counterparts.
Questions? Commissioner Schulman?
How far out can we go on,
I can go out all next year
so is that by, are we restricted
by
by law?
contract,
Oh, okay.
by contract.
And the TD expensing, the invoices, you said that they're higher than expected. Is that because, well, first question is, what's the lag time in what we're getting? And was there a pileup and we expect it to then ease, or?
There was a pile up in getting the, there's a backlog in that, and getting which is typical for their TD agencies. And of course, I think they just are having more people into the TD program than what we had anticipated. We are spending a significant amount of time once we get the invoices in, doing a review process to ensure that everybody on there is in the TD program. And then what we're doing is also ensuring that the TD agencies have validated that and have all the documentation on file so that we don't end up with audit findings.
Okay, so this isn't something that will generally smooth out in the future. It is just it is higher than expected.
It's just higher than expected.
You're talking about the nonprofit?
Right, the TD agencies, yep.
In the TD program, we don't usually talk about it that much, but PSTA gives $800,000 or something like that of its TD money that we get from the state each year to 4 nonprofit organizations in Pinellas County: Park, U Park, Lighthouse, and Neighborly Care Network.
Yes.
And I guess they're loading up on the bills to for that.
up, but it's a little more than what we anticipated.
I believe our contracts, though, that they cannot exceed
No, they cannot
their,
exceed.
the budget, the budgeted amount, so it will
Typically,
wash
they-
itself out.
Typically, they underspend what they have for the entire year.
Yeah.
And if they do so, PSTA always has more that we're providing than what we've anticipated. So we will, if there's anything left on the table, it doesn't go away, PSTA benefits. But right now, they're a little ahead of the game.
Thank you.
Any questions? I have two questions, both tying to our electric buses. First question is, the utilities expense that's over budget, does that include, do we have a separate utilities category for the charging stations and so on?
We do. We keep it separate so that we can track it.
Yeah,
It's not causing us to go over budget. I think we just.
okay. So when we obtain our other 4 buses this year, are we budgeted for charging 6 buses on a daily basis as opposed to 2 buses on a daily basis?
We have in fiscal '20, I think, for two, because I think the receipt of it will be into early next year.
Okay, all right, so we'll continue to focus on that. The second question is, once we have 6 buses on board with regard to the fuel savings, which are super because of this, that should also further reduce down our diesel consumption when we have that. So how do we factor that in?
Henry always gives us numbers based on, he has it broken down by bus type, by the bus series, and how much average miles per gallon that we're getting. So he will take all that into consideration with the new electric vehicles to come in. And with the amount of preventative maintenance that he does, we continually are seeing an increase in the amount of miles per gallon on
Yes,
even on the
that's great, yeah. When we get the new trolley buses, do we have a delivery date on that yet?
We're looking at tentatively the end of this calendar year, December 2020.
Okay, so that would be in next year's fiscal year budget, not now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what I'm getting at is, do we need, we're going to need less diesel fuel with the new electric buses, but we'll need more diesel fuel because we'll be adding these new trolleys that are all diesels. So it's going to be a tough calculation to figure that out.
Henry can handle it.
Yeah, I didn't say that. Of course he can handle it. He's the man.
We do have a spreadsheet that breaks the fleet down in percentages of whether it's diesel, hybrid, electric, and the finance department and I, along with the scheduling department, set a fleet-wide fuel economy. And then, based off the percentage of those buses, how many miles that they would go totally annually. And it's actually a lot easier than what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
But we do it. We have been really dialing in that number closely. So to answer your question, yes, as more electric buses come in, as the fuel economy of the bus fleet increases, less diesel fuel is consumed. Also, I'd throw in there that when it remains cooler outside, we do see a reduced consumption. So if it was 70 all year long, we would be in pretty good shape.
Great. All right. Excellent report. Thank you, Debbie and team. Anything else you want to tell us at this point? Oh, Commissioner Bennett, you have a question?
Well, I was feeling bad that Henry didn't get to tell us a lot until just now. But of the 200-plus some buses that we have, how many of those buses have shields?
We are up about 70%.
So 140 buses have shields? And what's the expectation of the next 30%?
So we are going to start reinstallations next week. We have to reconstruct a bracket in our oldest vehicles, the 05s and 06s, so those will
Okay, good. I mean, that was kind of off topic, but it was something
It's important.
we should hear.
Thank you. Okay,
Also the coronavirus, too.
yeah, no, that's the other question I wanted to ask Debbie, thanks for bringing that up. Our revenues may well go down, because one of the things that is talked about is to avoid public transportation. And so our revenues may, I don't know how people are going to get to work, but they're saying work from home. So all those kinds of things, we don't know how to even calculate that into our reporting at this point, I would assume.
True. Certainly, probably ridership is going to be lower in the month of March than it was. You know, March is always our highest ridership month of the year due to spring break, and who knows what's going to happen exactly with demand for spring break. So we'll have to monitor that.
Okay. By the way, everybody, ABC did a thing where Commissioner Albritton and I, and also George Kretikos, who's the mayor of the city of Clearwater Beach, did interviews with ABC, and those interviews got substantially cut down, but there is a little teeny blur that we got some benefit. They took pictures of the ride, went over the bridge, and interviewed each of us, and so on and so forth. I got one sentence, nobody else got any sentences, and the woman went back, who was the TV personality, went back and did another quick summary of all the information we had given her, and like 6 o'clock in the morning, it looks like she was doing it in the middle of the night, but at least we got some benefit out of that, I hope. Yeah, that's a picture of all the people, but
You took it with the cameraman.
Pardon me?
You took the picture with the cameraman.
Yeah, the cameraman, yes, our famous photographer right over here gave us that, so Stephanie did a good job. Yeah, we had a very nice time, but then the lady who was the TV personality went back and did an overdubbing the next day at 6 o'clock in the morning or something. It was dark out when she took the picture. It wasn't dark out when we were there. But hopefully we'll continue to get good advertising out of these kinds of things, and we can up our make a higher profile for PSTA to keep us in the loop, so people think of us, not just the regular riders, but hopefully attracting some new riders as well. Okay. Ridership and performance, Brad.
Well, maybe girding ourselves for maybe a challenging month of March, but February ridership was up, so that's positive. And the only other thing I will report is we need to work on this to track our security incidents. I see a bunch of NAs. I don't know why that is. For last year, yeah, but we have that data now, so at least for all. Yeah. Pretty good.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Schulman?
So complaints on DART are up almost 100% over prior year. Any sense as to what those are related to?
Yeah, we've looked into that quite a bit. We believe most of the reason that it's up so much is due to a change in management and better tracking, perhaps. Although there have been some changes at CareRide, and we'll be presenting some more of this information in the coming months, where they've reduced expenses, reduced overtime, and really become more efficient, and that is leading to some more complaints about being on time. They are less on time than they were in the past, but still very, very good on-time performance by CareRide. But so we are tracking that, talking with them. They have performance measures in their contract that we're adhering to.
Do we track what kinds of complaints they are, or is it just a complaint has been made? Like is it on time, or is it driver attitude, or is it cleanliness of the vehicle? You know,
Yeah,
do we know what kind of complaints?
We do have a tracking system that categorizes things like that.
Okay.
And each complaint is investigated, as to, what exactly happened with the contractor. I can tell you that almost all of it for Care Ride is on time. Where's my ride? That kind of thing.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so future meeting subjects, Brad, anything that we need to discuss in some detail?
Well, get ready for a fun half hour, 40 minutes of interviewing accounting firms,
Right.
auditing firms next month.
Right.
That'll be the main topic.
Yeah.
Not tire lease? That's awesome.
Tire lease, yes, that'll be on the agenda also,
None of us
probably.
are CPAs here, so we're gonna have a little bit of
So
culture shock, I guess.
Rachel and
when
Clarksville
we
will
actually do this.
make sure, maybe we will even have 3 pots of coffee to keep it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, very
What
good.
will be the date of that meeting? April what?
April 15th,
Appropriate.
appropriately, tax
Wow.
day.
Maybe.
Boy, that might be
Timing perfectly,
delayed.
Yikes.
All right.
Luckily, audit staff doesn't usually.
Okay, any other things we need to cover in this meeting? All right, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Oh, it's showing up just 1 minute late.
Sweating.
Sometimes.
No, it's too bad. I wonder if we can, planning committee.
Man,
They're handling that live stream.
Take some of the water out of it.
Forming.
I don't know what their part is, but the live stream.
So, yeah, we're trying to figure out how we
Okay,
can.
but they know that.
Well, I talked.
Oh, yeah.
Told
I mean,
him,
you-
what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yes, everybody.